Okay, we're on overtime. Here are some of your questions. The CDC, the Center for Disease Control, predicts that Ebola will affect 550,000 people by the end of the year. Shouldn't we be more concerned? Well, we just sent how many troops to
3,000?
Yeah,
3,000. I mean, that's a pretty big.
And $30 million to the CDC and $58 million for BARDA to come up with a vaccine. So, I mean, we've done everything that we're supposed to be doing, but I've never heard that number.
But yeah, Fox News doesn't think we're doing enough, so.
Because it's Obama.
Because it's Obama. Ebola has replaced ISIS at the border for Fox News, at least temporarily.
Well, it's interesting you say that, because here's a question. It says, does the Mexican border pose a real threat to national security to justify its increased militarization by Rick Perry? I don't know if are they talking about ISIS at the border, like Trent Franks, or are they talking about the Guatemalan kids who are looking for a peanut butter sandwich at the border?
And who no one's talking about anymore.
No, they seem to have disappeared, those kids.
And that was just a loophole, because they wanted to make sure Mexican kids didn't come. So in the original bill that said, you know, we're going to expedite sort of in any sort of consideration of people coming here for asylum. We want to do it, but just make sure no Mexican kids. And so all of the coyotes then went south and said, we'll do it for Central American, Guatemalan kids, and that's when the influx started.
Not the coyotes in my backyard. They are, man, those...
Actually, I just went down to Honduras and met with a lot of these kids and the families. The crazy thing about it, that,
you went down to Honduras?
Yeah, El Salvador and Guatemala.
You go anywhere.
I know, and I want you to go with me.
Yes, I know you do, and it's never going to happen, Jack. But I so admire...
You won't hang out, you won't travel with me.
I'll totally hang out. I'll go to the Beverly Hills Hotel anytime you want. But I mean, I admire that. You go to Rwanda to help the gorillas.
And the children. Don't forget, there is a little humanity.
And the children of the gorillas. I think helping the gorillas is humanity.
Well, it is. But these kids, what's interesting, Wendell, is that the coyotes will say to them, we'll give you 3 attempts. Give me $4,000, $5,000, and they sometimes they make it, and sometimes they don't. They keep doing it, but they're making millions upon millions of dollars, more money than that than smuggling drugs at the moment.
What's not being talked about, though, is that all these people are a profit center. Talk about for-profit colleges, for-profit prisons. The for-profit prison system in Arizona is one of the most pernicious things in the entire world. Yet again, shareholders enrich by filling prison beds. And the immigration laws in Arizona are their key money-making provision.
Far be it from me to pile on the Republicans, but I must say, one of the worst ideas in the whole Republican category is the idea that everything should be for profit, that the free market always knows best. Certainly, prisons. We could... Healthcare in prisons. Sick and dying people and prisoners. Shouldn't those two things that shouldn't just be for the profit motive? Is that so much to ask?
Yeah. But the profit motive...
I know my place. I will defend profit. Profit is a good thing.
It is.
Always, in every instance.
Let me say, in this case,
then you're incentivized to pass tough on crime laws.
A private prison is controlled by the government. It is a bid situation. And the health care is still provided by the government. And
health care is not provided by the government?
Yes, it is.
You have to buy insurance.
Health care is
in prison.
No, in a private
in a private prison.
Oh,
okay.
Well, I mean, the whole idea of privatization that the GOP is working on is what, General Powell was talking about as majority becomes minority.
Right.
They're trying to coalesce all of the power, money, influence as we become minorities in privatization of all of our government treasury in every field. So when we put our people in office, we control this privatization, although in 20 years we're a minority, we are still in control of power,
America is the greatest
money.
country in the world, the most exceptional, the most fantastic people, and yet we have more of our own people in prison than any other country.
We've built.
How do we square that
built
circle?
28 prisons in California the last 30 years, and only 1 new public university. That just goes to show you. By the way, prison spending is crowding out education.
Yeah, now, and I'm a son of a college professor. I'm from a college town. I think absolutely we've got to invest in education. There's no debate at all. One thing I want to point out.
Does that mean you're for the Pell Grant?
Let me say this about the student loan program.
Yeah.
As you know, that was done in 2007 under Nancy Pelosi and the Democrat leadership. The program that you're criticizing John Klein for was a Democrat package passed by the Democrat House, Democrat Senate, signed by President Obama.
It was a bill to cap interest rates and make them fixed, not variable. That
but
change with the market.
it's still in effect today. Because
but
when
it's
you
been changed.
No,
to
it
a variable
hasn't.
rate.
It hasn't. And if it
rate.
was changed today, it would have been signed by President Obama and passed by Harry Reid.
And it was a bad bill that we opposed anyway.
Right,
so
but
I'm telling you, though, I mean, you have to admit that it was a Democrat bill.
No.
Why do you always say Democrat when you know the word is Democratic?
Somebody.
It's kind of a.
My job.
It's a subtle.
My job is equal time with you people, and I'm going to.
I know that's a subtle dig, the Democrat, and I don't even get it. I don't even know why. Instead of saying Democratic, Democrat, like.
Trust me, Bill. It's Democrat.
But seriously, why are we arguing? Why is the big political debate about how high student interest loan rates, interest rates should be? Why are we not debating building more universities?
Or doing what Oregon does, or Australia does.
You brought up 1980 before.
In
1980, I paid $350 a semester at the University of Wisconsin. The school, the UC system here was free until Ronald Reagan decided those uppity kids shouldn't get to go to college for free because they were misusing their education.
Reagan said that the federal government should not be in the business of making young people rich and subsidizing their profits. So
completely turning on its head the entire.
And that's why the GOP is very good at rhetoric, because they loved Ronald Reagan for all of his rhetoric. And he spoke to poor white folk. That's who the GOP folks are, poor white folk, because you might become a member of the rich white guy club.
Are you saying, I want to make sure I understand, you're saying...
And so that's the largest portion of poor people here.
My learned, college-educated panelists here, are you saying a truck driver who makes $30,000 a year who did not go to college should subsidize some future doctor and lawyer who did?
Yes.
Because
we have actually, and you know what?
Because they're subsidizing their own children.
Because we actually decide that the values in our country believe that.
Because it pays itself back many times over.
The blue collar should subsidize the white collar.
We
should
no.
The white collar should subsidize the blue collar. And vice versa. Everyone should.
The rich should pay much higher.
Truck driver who makes $30,000 a year, should he subsidize the future doctor and lawyer?
Why are you condescending to the non-college truck driver?
I'm asking you that question.
He or she might want his or her
we have
kids
decided we're not going to parse what type of education you're going to get. We're not parsing that.
You know, in some countries, college is free.
Hey,
I just want to point out, in some countries,
Australia,
and you know, we have 11 aircraft carriers. Nobody else has any. Like, if we only had 8, we probably could send everybody to college. And I don't think Finland would invade. And by the way, speaking of Ronald Reagan, and we were talking about the Middle East before, you know, in 1983, when the barracks was bombed in Beirut, George Bush, the first, went over there. He was the vice president at the time. He stood in the rubble and he said, "We will not be cowed by terrorists." And then we cut and ran. What do you think about that?
Well, I tend to agree with you because, listen, USS Cole, 17 Americans killed under Clinton as president. It was called a criminal act. The bombing of the embassy in Nairobi, criminal act. The 1993 bombing of the World Trade Center, a criminal act. Instead of, this was an act of terrorism. What did it bring to us? 9/11. We should have done something.
So you're saying Reagan was the beginning of the problem?
I would say there were mistakes that were made.
Mistakes were made. The old
always the
voice.
passive tense when it's about St. Reagan. Mistakes were made. He could not have made them. All right. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, panel. We'll see you next time.